Do you like mystery stories? Well, I've got a mystery story for you today. It's called Fog Island by Tommy Ungerer. It's set in history, probably 100 years or so ago. The place very much like Scotland. Finn and Cara were brother and sister. They lived by the sea in the back of Beyond. While their father was out fishing, their mother ran the farm. They grew and raised what they needed. The family was poor, yet grateful to survive on what they had. Finn and Cara looked after the sheep that grazed up on the headland. They loaded the peat, cut and dried it for the hearth. In the evenings, inside their cosy cottage, the louder the howling and the rattling wind, the cosier they felt inside. Their father was also a boat builder. From bent reeds and tarred canvas he fashioned a small curragh, which is a type of boat, and he built this as a surprise for his children. But never leave the bay, he warned them, and stay clear of Fog Island. It's a doomed and evil place, surrounded by treacherous currents. Those who have ventured there have never returned, he warned them. But there in the distance, miles offshore, Fog Island loomed like a jagged black tooth. Finn and Cara loved to explore their shoreline and fish on their own. But one day a thick fog rolled in, and the tide pulled them out. Swept up by strong currents, they drifted out to sea. They were lost in total silence, but for the warning bell of the buoy. A buoy is a little bit like a warning. Here it is. You see, it floats in the sea in areas that are dangerous to warn boats and people to keep away. Darkness slowly fell, and the current carried them to a small inlet. They dragged their boat ashore and prepared themselves to spend the night. As the moon rose and flooded the shore with milky light, a stairway carved into the cliff became visible. Looking around, Finn exclaimed, "This must be Fog Island. Let's find out where those steps lead." The steps were steep and slippery, and in the moonlight everything seemed to be dusted with flour. They climbed and climbed and climbed. As they reached a door set in a high stone wall, they rang the bell and the door opened, slowly, squeaking on its rusty hinges, and there stood a wizened old man. "What a surprise!" he exclaimed. "What brings you here? Who are you? Anyway, whoever you are, come inside and be welcome." They entered a large cavernous hall, curiously warm and steamy. "I am the Fog Man," said the host. "You must have lost in the fog." "What do you mean, your fog?" said Finn. "I'm the one who makes it. I turned it on, and now I'll turn it off, so it'll be clear for tomorrow for your journey home." And you see, it's turning out a big wheel. "How do you make the fog?" asked Cara. "Oh, let me show you," replied the Fog Man, opening the thick metal door of an enormous boiler. "Look there. What do you see?" Finn and Cara bent over the hatch and gazed into a deep, deep well. From the bottom, a blazing heat rose from a glowing, bubbling, liquidy red mass. "It looks like hell," said Finn. "No, it's magma you're looking into, the centre of the earth." "Like into a crater of a volcano," said Cara. "Exactly," answered the Fogman. "You see, when I open the valve, seawater flows in, evaporates, and becomes fog." "I've been alone here for such a long time, but to be lonesome is not a reason to get bored. The animals love love my songs, which I drone on for hours in forgotten languages. Now let me entertain you." And what a sing-song they all had! Finn and Cara had never had so much fun. "You must be starving now," remarked the Fogman. "Here, try some of my stew. My crows provide me with seaweed and shellfish, which is my daily fare." It tasted awful, but felt strangely heartening. After the meal, the Fogman showed them to their room for the night. There they settled down into a sleep in a huge bed, exhausted by their adventures. The next morning they woke up in the midst of ruins. Had it all been a dream? Was the Fogman a ghost or an illusion? But then again, the quilt and the 2 steaming bowls of stew waiting for them. Where had they come from? By now they were in a hurry to leave the island and to get home, and had no time for questions without answers. As predicted, the fog had lifted, so Finn and Cara set off in their curragh. The currents, which had now reversed, towed them towards back to the mainland. The Fogman could control the fog, but not the elements. A strong wind came up, and all at once they found themselves caught in a storm and tossed about by furious waves. Frantically, Cara bailed out the water from the boat, while Finn tried hard to get them on course. At home, their parents had spent a sleepless night, fearing the worst. That moment, their father set out with the other fishermen to search for the children. Just in time, they spotted Finn and Cara. After several attempts, they barely managed to hoist them on board their larger curragh. Finn and Cara's mother spotted the boat in the distance. "Oh, my children are aboard!" she cried, running into the water. They battled the elements, but had all made it back into the mainland safe and sound. The onlookers were entangled in gossip, wondering what had happened. That night, all the neighbours gathered at the local pub to celebrate the children's homecoming, though nobody had ever before gone to Fog Island and returned. Not one of the villagers believed the story about the Fogman. "We can prove it! The bowls and the quilt are still there," Finn and Cara said, but no one had the courage to go back and check. Weeks later, the brother and sister were having supper. Cara found a hair in the soup and pulled and pulled. "The Fogmans," she whispered to Finn. The parents never found out the reason for their chuckling giggles. What do you think? Do you think what happened to them was true?